Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ascension and New World Wealth Show. I'm so excited to introduce you today to Hillis Pugh. Hillis is an author, a teacher, a speaker, a holistic practitioner, utilizing the gifts and tools he has acquired over time to empower others on their journey. Hillis mentors each soul on their path to lift them up so they can see what he sees beyond the physical realm. He's an energy facilitator working with modalities such as psychic mediumship, Reiki, and Lumerian light energy to co create a deeper connection to the soul. I'm so excited to speak to you today, Hillis, and all of the amazing magical things that you do. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And when you say magical, it, I guess it is in a sense magical. I never really put it in that context because when you're a healer or facilitator of this energy, you just do what you do. I mean, there's it's simple but complex. So I guess the simplest way, I guess it is magic, huh?
To me, it feels definitely very magical. Now, I'd love to hear your story and your origin. Did you grow up as a psychic? Were you tuned into these things, or how did it come about? Because it was not like that for me. I did not come from a
No,
spiritual
well,
background.
as a kid, I remember having premonitions a lot as a child. Having dreams and seeing things and having visions, but not really sure what they were. And as I expressed this to my family or tried to, they would just kind of ignore it or brush it off a little bit. But there was times because it wasn't really nurtured growing up in kind of a religious household. It wasn't like strictly religious, but there's had a religious upbringing. Going to Catholic school, going to Baptist church, and the two really didn't mesh well with me. Saying, "Oh, I had a vision about this, that, and the other," and it just wasn't one of those things. And so as I got older, that skill set kind of waned because I wasn't practicing, I wasn't honing the ability to have premonitions. But when I got into my young adult life is when it began to come back stronger. And I remember having a premonition about my grandmother died. And I told my aunt about this, and she I don't want to say she didn't give me the side eye, but she kind of like, she questioned it, but didn't question it. And when my grandmother passed, it was exactly the way that I saw her, and I'm like, oh.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until I moved to New York till I went to school to hone my psychic mediumship to where I then learned I am more clairaudient than anything else. So my sense of hearing is practically stellar. Like I could hear spirit, I could hear things that some people may not be able to hear, especially when I allow myself to focus in on that energy or that sound. And then other times I just kind of like tune it out. I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Now, did you understand your abilities, or it was only until you started getting training that you started to understand, oh, this is actually how it works. I've been doing this all my life. It was only
well,
someone brought that to the awareness that
well,
that's it.
it's one of those things. I think with most people who who are aware of their innate abilities, because these are innate abilities, we just have to be aware of them. We just have to practice them. But it wasn't actually until I went to school to really understand what my particular strengths were. Because as a medium, as a psychic, you have clairvoyance, so you have clairaudience, you have clairsentience, you have clairgustus, you have, I forget what the last one is, the one that you smell. But you have all five of them. It's just that one is stronger than the other. Because for me personally, I hear before I see or feel. And sometimes I hear and see at the same time, depending on how strong the energy that's coming through is. So Honestly, it's different for everyone, but everyone has access to each ability.
Mm. Now, in the work that you do, I noticed that you work with the Lemurian light codes, and this is a little bit more advanced than I feel like it's more advanced because I'm only now understanding that, oh, we're actually more multidimensional than just our clairs. So, how did that come about?
Oh my god. So when I reached the point where was really comfortable with my psychic mediumship, I said, well, what's next? What's next? What can I do now? And so I went to pursue my Reiki 1 level certification. So I got that. Like, and I'm working with it, learning the symbols and the feeling the energy. And then as I got to become more comfortable with it, well, there's got to be something else. There has to be something that's a bit stronger for me for what I want to do, for what I want to achieve. I'm like, well, I guess it'll just come with time, like everything else. And it wasn't until I was about to go pursue my level 2 certification. And I saw this post on Facebook. It was about 2 paragraphs long. I read it. I'm like, this is what I want. This right here. This is for me. This is what I need. And so I contacted the teacher and we made arrangements for me to learn from them. And with that being said, I am now one of 2 teachers that has been allowed to attune and transmit Syrian Lemurian light energy.
Wow.
And so the process for me to get the attunement was about 6 or so months, about a half a year. And then after I put it into practice and had clients and was very successful in that, my teacher said I was then now granted to have the ability to attune others. So I'm like, yay, only after 5 years I can attune other people now.
Is there a reason why it took so like there's a time frame for these things? Was it like an integration or was it because you had to master the energy before you could teach it to other people?
Well, I feel it was that I really have to understand the energy, have to master before you, like you said, before I can attune it to other people. Because when you are first learning and when you're first really applying it, you know, that's when you really begin to understand it. And it wasn't until I started creating my own light language, or as I now prefer to call it, galactic language symbols and the energy of it, because that's what it is. It's galactic language, it's energy that's transmitted. And so it wasn't until that point where I got a message, and I did not even ask uh, to have the ability to attune others. He just said, "Hey, I was just told that I have to attune you to attune others." I'm like, "Okay." So that was that because I knew it was coming because of how fast I was moving through it because I'm a pretty quick study as I have found that when it comes to these things, doing plant medicine kind of accelerated the process too. So you have that.
Mm. So I would love to dive a little bit into like your awakening process and how you came about doing the work that you do today because you were connected to some of your gifts. Did you know that this was something that you wanted to do as a career
Oh
or did it
goodness,
evolve?
no. Oh goodness, no. I mean, there has not been one in my age range. I don't know about other people younger than I, but for those who are in my age range, there was no way that growing up that we thought we could make money doing what we do. I mean, getting paid to be a fortune teller, to be a psychic, and not be labeled as someone who scams somebody. Come on, that's like the furthest thing away from my mind, especially growing up in a religious household. No, I thought I was going to be this super famous poet like Maya Angelou, honestly, because I was 22 and I had a reading, and they said that you were going to be an amazing healer. In my mind, that was processed as me being a poet, as I write with my hands and I see the people's reactions they get when I do open mics or when people read my poetry. So it's like how for them to read that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I believe that. No, that was something completely different. None of my awareness at all, other than the casual uh, psychic reading I would go get, and or those other things. It was in my awareness to that degree, but it wasn't like me searching for it. It found me. It's like, "Get ready. Time to do it." I'm like, Okay." So I surrendered.
Wow. And do you feel that like because I hear poetry, art, and I see a lot of like a lot of healers in the space incorporate healing into their art and poetry. Do you still do poetry and art?
I do, and it's interesting because when there's always a catalyst to the reason why people are creative or to why people create. And for me, it was just for people to get a peek inside me and what I was thinking, what my thoughts were, what my feelings were. I often tell people if you read my poetry, especially any of my earlier stuff, it's like my own personal journal to the world, so to speak, and get a glimmer of what was going on in my life at that particular time. And as my poetry evolved, it became more spiritual and more encoded with the energy and infused in that. Matter of fact, I was reading something yesterday that was inspired by my aunt, who's in spirit. And a friend of mine was having a tough day yesterday, and I said, "Huh, okay, read, send him that." And so it was a particular poem that I wrote years ago, and I sent it to him. And even after I read it, I even cried a little bit because it's like it's so moving because I know what it meant to me, and I know what it means just for other people to read that. So
Yeah, I can relate because I feel like our spiritual nature is rooted in creativity. So
oh
just
yeah,
your expression and your desire to write poetry, it's an expression of your soul, right? It's a part of who you are. It's a way that people can connect with you and feel into that specialness of just you. Like, and each one of us has that component. Like we have a special thing, intangible, but it's the energy that people feel from us. And I really think where we're moving into is more tuning into that intuition, that creativity that we all have, that has been suppressed in the world that we live in. But being able to reconnect to that, bring that out.
yeah,
There is a multidimensional aspect to this because my understanding is we are limitless beings. We can just create things with our imagination, but first we have to tap into it, right?
yeah. Exactly. It's about that connection. And with the connection that we establish with what we believe or what we believe in or what our belief is, that's what it is dependent on, whether if it's spirit, whether if it's ourself or our guides or whom or whatever we choose to. It's really establishing that connection and giving yourself that permission to allow for the energy to come through to create or to be of service. I find that my level of service also translates to my space of creativity, because in this space I commune with, my clients, guys, my guys, spirit, all that is coming to assist to bring forth this energy to create this tangible web that can be felt to contribute to someone's nurturing of their soul, nurturing of their body, to allow them to mend from the past, of past trauma, past shame that they have endured up until whatever moments of their life. And I feel that's very important to have that liberty to do.
Yeah. And I know your topic today, you wrote Hue-Man. So Hue
Yes.
is separate than the men. So I would love to know why it's separated or what that represents.
Well, it's just hyphenated in this spatial energy. so people can really understand what it really means. Because if you take the word hue, Hue, we commonly see it as the understanding of the full spectrum, as the understanding the spectrum of light, spectrum of life. And that's what it is evolves to, or what it references is the full spectrum of humanity. Human is the full spectrum of humanity, the scope in which we are living and the scope in which we are evolving to. Because, in my understanding and research and communing with energies that be, it's always been human. It's always been a full spectrum because in some of my recent readings of understanding the first civilization that inhabited this one island full of 10 tribes of people with different skin tones, different colors. There was a hue of them, and they got along. And it wasn't because, of their skin color was different, it was because they lived in harmony with one another. They lived as one race, as one people, with one goal, and that was to enjoy life, to love, to live, and just simply be. And that's what Hue-Man is. It's really understanding the black, the white, the gay, the straight, the Latina, the Asian. It's understanding all of the communities that inhabited this world that we live in. And through that, we can allow ourselves to come together, to collaborate, to co-create, to create a cohesiveness in this collection space, this planet Earth we call home. I mean, there's no sense of fighting anymore. There's no sense of disagreeing anymore. Yeah, it brings new ways of thought and new ways of evolution. But when you have that, you honor that in each other. And there's a way to live in a space of disagreement, yet respectfully and honor that, as opposed to disagree and be hateful. Because which frequency would you rather operate on, love or hate? It's just that simple.
Yeah, there's that saying, would you rather be right or would you rather, I forgot the other part, but like
Yeah,
how,
no, I know the one that
right?
you speak of. Yeah.
Usually it's for like in a relationship, like in a marriage. It's like, would you rather let your wife be right? Or would
Yeah,
you
and most people say, yeah, let her be right. And sometimes, you know, that's what it comes down to, because what's the point of having the argument or the disagreement when you're trying to prove something to someone who doesn't listen, or to prove something where someone is not fully aware, or trying to prove a point? You know, there's no sense in really pushing against something, because if you push more, the more resistance you're going to get. And just allow yourself to surrender to the flow. Just like, I surrendered to me, being this energy being who's of service to other people. I mean, it's just easy. When you allow yourself to have ease, things just flow. And yeah, there are times where it becomes challenging, but those are moments where you have to allow yourself to sit, slow down, to harmonize, to find the harmony, to have that balance. I guess I'm just gonna have to wait this one out.
What are your thoughts on, I guess, like taking initiative and then also going with the flow? Because sometimes, and this is also coming from, I personally want to know, in my journey, we're so conditioned to move, 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 do, do, do. So I'm always used to taking the initiative, and then I realize like, oh, I took the initiative, but then all of a sudden, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. I feel like I'm pushing and hustling, right? Versus wanting to just be okay, like just be okay to be present in the moment and let things come to me. So, how do you, I guess, work with that balance of being in movement and then also just being present?
Well, you have to understand the energies and the cycles of it all, because in the beginning, especially when I was younger, with the universal energies, it was more of a masculine energy. It was always about energy of doing as opposed to the energy of being. And doing is taking that action and really allowing for you to just ground it out, pound it out, whatever you got to do to make whatever happen with a lot of forcefulness with the energy. But now, as we are moving into a more of a divine feminine energy, all about really understanding the cultivation and the nourishment of that thought of that idea, and then allowing for that flow to be in that state of being. Because you have to understand that before you can do, you have to be. And the balance of that is having taken inspired action. And what that means is you really have to sit with the thoughts, sit with the ideas, sit with whatever it is that you're feeling. Whether if it's communing with your higher gods, with your guides, whomever in that space, then allow yourself to take that part and say, okay, I understand this, sit with it, commune with it, meditate with it, write it down in the journal or whatever it is you do, and then plan it out, and then take that inspired action. And that's how you find the balance. I mean, some it's more challenging to do for others. I mean, people just want to do all the time. And it's like, this is how I get stuff done. Well, aren't you tired of doing all the time? Can't you just be?
I feel that to the core of my soul because the there's always that little whisper that says, "Are you really doing enough?" Because if you don't do anything, how can anything happen? But what you just mentioned about the beingness and then the doing will naturally come, that's my understanding. And I heard this before. I believe by Bashar. I love listening to some of his videos that come up on my feed where he says, if you have to question and force yourself to take action, then it hasn't landed in your inner knowing yet.
Yeah,
Soon as it lands in your inner knowing that you know this is who you are, this is what you want to do, that then you are being it. You are being it because you're naturally just doing it. You don't have to sit here and think about doing it.
it just naturally happens. I mean, because you're on the flow of that space. I mean, you ever hear athletes talk about being in the zone or being in the flow? That's exactly what it is. When I used to run track and cross country, and I used to play volleyball and wrestling, I did all these sports in high school. It was in a state of being in flow, because especially when you're running track, you have no choice but you can't think. There's no thinking that happens when you're running. You're just in the state of doing. You're just taking this physical action to thrust yourself to the finish line. That's all it is. But there's this moment where you see the last 50 yards. It's like something just, and there's a higher gear, a higher octave, something else is channeled that you may or may not be aware of, or you may not be in control of, but it just takes over, and you just allow yourself to move, and you zone out, and it's just a beautiful experience. And as I say that, it kind of relates to how sometimes I work with my clients, and I have to be very mindful of this space, because there's a bridge here, of me being conscious and me zoning out, into a trance-like state. Because working with clients in a guided meditation, and cultivating and bringing them the energy that they've asked for, there's precipice, just like right on the very edge of bringing in an abundant amount of energy for their soul, for their body to infuse, to integrate. There's this moment where I'm teetering on being in a trance state and just zoning out. But I know that the energy is so great that I have to allow myself to be conscious, because they can fall asleep. That's fine. But I can't fall asleep, or unless, there's spirit is like telling me there's a new something that's coming for me to help with. Yeah, We can have a sleep session where I go to sleep and you go to sleep, and I transmit energy. Then when we wake up, boom, brand new. Uh, but it's like being in that space, and that's part of weaving the tapestry of what it means to be a human, to really tap into those energies and to really understand the varying frequencies of it. And one best way to do that is really listen to your body, both energetically and um, with your ears as well.
Mm. How do we listen to our body with our ears?
I do what I'm about to say. I do not recommend this for anyone unless you are experienced or have um, a guide with you. So I do plant medicine, mushrooms, ayahuasca. I do all of that. And so sometimes when I go on my solo journeys, I plug my ears, and you'll be amazed at the hundreds of sounds that are coming out of your body, that your body is emanating at the same time. And it's just a symphony, an orchestra of birthing and dying that's happening all at the same time in your body. And to really understand those frequencies, to hear those very, very, very high pitched frequencies, or those very low frequencies, or even the sound of your own heart beating, and where it's receiving blood and pushing up blood, and then your lungs when it's filling up with air, and your diaphragm and your digestive system, and it's just all this amazing movement that's happening, and when the neurons, fire in the brain, and everything begins to transmit this information, and this symphony, and I can get lost in it because I'm understanding the nuances of the frequencies, and I feel that's very important now, especially that people doing studies on frequencies and how they impact the body, and how certain frequencies can cancel out one another to improve the health and vitality of the
Mhm.
body. So really to understand it from an energy medicine perspective, really sit in that space. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, in your plant medicine journeys, is that always the experience, or do you actually experience different things each time? Like, I've never done it
It's
personally, so I'm curious.
it's no, so it's always about intention first. I mean, every journey is different, and I can tell you that when I have journeyed with mushrooms in particular, because they are the children of the universe, they are the first teachers on this planet. Before there was ayahuasca, before there was anything else, there was mushrooms, and they were the first teachers. And so when you allow yourself to really sit and the reverence and honor that energy that they transmit, you can really begin to understand their purpose and really sit and hold that energy and that intention, and really learning about what's going on inside, because you have what 50 trillion, 500 trillion cells going on doing different things and different functions. And like I said, some things are living, some things are dying, and the ones that are living go to this way and the ones that are dying go that way. And so there's like this whole orchestra, this symphony, this playground of multiple organisms happening in your body. Even now with the thought of me speaking, where does that even come from?
Mm.
It's there's simultaneous functions happening for me to have a thought, and to have this thought be communicated down to my vocal cords, and for my vocal cords to make the shapes and the whatever they need to do to project the words, to enunciate. And as I project the words, my tongue moves in a certain way, my mouth opens a certain way. So it's all this simultaneous action that is pre-programmed. I mean, even think about it. You have, uh, I forget what they're called, but a baby giraffe. I think it's called a cat. For most baby animals, when they're born, they already know how to walk. They know how to do certain things. But for us humans, it's when we reincarnate in this body, we have to learn everything all over again. So there's that space of of really understanding what it means to really be a human, taking that energy and really understanding what it is. Then understanding all the simultaneous functions that are happening from thought to action. So which goes back to what we talked about earlier about the state of being. Because I have to be first, I have to have that thought first for my body can do. Now I can just get up and walk and don't really have to think about it. I just do it because my body's so used to walking or my body's so used to sleeping. There's certain functions that we just do because it's muscle memory or it's ingrained in us, so there's these things. Now you have to really take it now to the next level.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. That just brought a whole new context. Like it was a more complex layer and understanding of our beingness that we aren't just like a soul and a body. Our body has so many complexities to it and the way that we function and the way that we move. So we're bringing our understanding of like energy, frequency, movement, all of these things that we don't not normally like witness on a conscious level all day and bringing that into our, oh my goodness, like we can shift these certain energies, we can change our thoughts, and that changes the way that we unconsciously do things into the conscious awareness. We break patterns, we change the way that we move and do. So that was a
Yeah,
beautiful explanation. Thank you so much.
you're most welcome. One of the things that I teach is when I talk about the law of vibration, which is the third and final immutable law, meaning that it cannot be changed, is that when you master your thoughts, that's when you have true thought power. And there's very few that I have met who have mastered their thoughts. And I'm haven't mastered my thoughts when I'm in my everyday state, my thoughts are thought. It is what it is. But when I allow myself to step into the space of being of service to my clients, when I allow myself to have that altered state of consciousness or that elevated state of consciousness, then yeah, then I step into the space of mastery of my thoughts because if I don't, then I don't know what other energies may enter into that space, that may not be of highest or best good, for myself or for those who I serve.
Yeah. So in your perspective, it's more than just the energy. It's a mind also, like mind, body, spirit. It's a combination of everything.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because when you step into that frequency, it's the level of awareness of the energy that's around you. And this is a perfect example. I'm being guided to share this story with those who are watching. Is there's a alchemy school. Sometimes I don't go to it a lot, but when I go out, and in this alchemy school, understanding the elements, and it really helped me to understand the elements. So as I just learned the four primary forces, and we can get into that later, but the elements, especially the element of air, was one of the first elements that was created. And I'm in my yard and I am looking at the trees, just marvel at their playful, if you will. The leaves, how they move, and how they interact with the wind and the air. And I asked this question is, well, what makes the trees, move? What causes energy to them? And the answer that I got was consciousness. Like, okay, that's interesting because you have to understand that the trees are earth energy and the trees are stagnant. They can't go anywhere. They're planted. That once they're rooted, that's it. But they have the leaves and the branches to communicate and to connect with the air element, to have that playfulness, to have that wind in their leaves and in their branches. But the consciousness calls them. But then it's like, okay, if consciousness calls them, consciousness of this element earth, also this consciousness of the element air. Where does the consciousness come from? And the answer to that is simple: it's love. It's the love of the interaction that they have, to for one to gratify the other. Because with the stagnation and the rootedness of earth, it does not have that uh, interaction. And so when the wind blows, it's because of the consciousness of the trees. They call that energy to them to experience that in which they lack, which is the playful.
I have never heard of that before, and this is like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because everything around us is consciousness. Everything, every single inanimate object, and I know most people don't talk about it, but the inanimate objects come from an organic source.
Mm,
They had energy, they had uh, personality, they had these things that make them who they are. So when you appreciate and have gratitude even for the inanimate objects that were once organic, that one another, the we transform them into something else. And so when we allow for us to sit in that space of being and really receive that, then we can begin to open up to more avenues of consciousness and really understand not just inanimate objects, but understand the energy that is around us that we often don't think about.
that is beautiful. Thank you for that. And I would love to close this interview today with first your free gift and then some last words of wisdom or any intuitive practice that you would love to share with the audience.
So my free gift, if I recall correctly, because I've done a few of these and I've alternated with my free gift. So my free gift, I believe, is my free meditation.
I have
And
here, let me see, to, is it Syrian School of Self Mastery?
oh wait, yes, that's coming. I'm working on the school, but I believe, yeah, it should be the meditation. I don't remember. It should be the meditation. Well, but in the event, I believe it's a meditation, and so what people can expect is this is a practice that I cultivated for myself, and this practice was when I was moving from a state of doing to moving into a state of being, and it really helped me to begin to cultivate and change my way of life. And this is a meditation where you can change your story because since we are fluid in energy and our thoughts are our teachers or our hindrances, we then can allow ourselves to change our story through this meditation that I cultivated me through my practice. And it helped me so much that I decided to share it with other people. And so I want everyone who is participating in this to enjoy this meditation and for you to begin to change your story because you're the master of it. No one else can tell you otherwise.
Yeah, thank you for your generosity, Hillis. It's beautiful meditation. And any last words of wisdom or intuitive practice that you would like to share with us?
In this time to where we are on an accelerated path in our collective, we often decide or feel that we have to move at that speed, where we have to match the speed and intensity in which all is moving around us. However, this is the perfect time to be an observer, to sit in a state of being and observe the world around you before you take action and join the flow, to join this intense movement of energy that is flowing around you. Because sometimes when you jump in the current, you may get lost You may get drowned, you may get swallowed up. But when you sit back and be the observer of this current of energy that's moving so swiftly, you know when and how to enter, and then begin to take action without suffering any consequences, any setbacks, or anything that can do you harm. And so let those lessons teach you, show you the way, and sit in the space of reverence and be the great observer that I know that each of you are just by watching.
Thank you.
Hmm.